When did the first Quidditch World Cup take place? Which country has won the tournament the most times? And how is Brazil seen in the Quidditch World Cup landscape? Today, we're going to dive into the fascinating and chaotic history behind the Quidditch World Cups in the Harry Potter universe. Music. Hey there, wizards! How's it going? Brazil isn't just a 5-time champion in Muggle soccer, you know?
Our country was also once a major powerhouse in World Quidditch.
And actually, the favorite Quidditch player of Harry Potter's own son is a player from the Brazilian national team. The Quidditch World Cup takes place every 4 years and had its first edition in the year 1473. And the country that hosted this tournament for the first time was Transylvania. Music. However, this date is questioned by many. After all, only European teams participated in the tournament in the 15th and 16th centuries. The final of the first World Cup was between Flanders and Transylvania. During the chaotic match, all 700 known fouls in Quidditch were committed, including the transfiguration of a chaser into a ferret, the attempt to decapitate the keeper with a sword, and the release of 100 vampire bats under the cloak of the captain of the Transylvania team. The first great world champion was Transylvania, but since the competition wasn't held at a global level, even though it carried that name, purists prefer to date the Quidditch World Cup from the 17th century, which was when it truly became open to all continents. A decisive moment for the Quidditch World Cup was the arrival of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy, which forced wizards and everything magical to live in hiding. The International Confederation of Wizards considered the Quidditch World Cup a major risk of exposure, due, of course, to the movement and mass gathering of so many members of the international wizarding community. However, after a wave of protests to the International Confederation of Wizards, it was agreed that the tournament could continue to exist, but a regulatory body needed to be created, and thus the International Quidditch Cup Committee was created.
It is the function of this committee to determine the locations of the World Cup matches, which are usually more deserted regions, such as wild moors, deserts, or even uninhabited islands. It is also the responsibility of this committee to take care of the transportation of all the fans.
And with all these precautions, obviously, to protect the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy. The number of countries that sign up for the World Cup varies from tournament to tournament. In countries with a small wizarding population, it can be difficult to form a team that meets the levels required for the competition. But other factors as well, such as international conflicts and disasters, can end up influencing this. Any country can register its team to participate in the World Cup, as long as this registration is done within a year after the last cup.
After those 12 months, registration is no longer possible.
The teams are divided into 16 groups, within which each team plays against all the others over a period of 2 years, until only the 16 winning teams remain. These teams qualify for the Quidditch World Cup. During this qualifying phase, the duration of the matches is limited to up to 4 hours. This is to prevent, of course, player exhaustion. Inevitably, this means that in some matches, the golden snitch is not caught.
Therefore, the result is determined by the number of goals scored. Any win in the group stage is worth 2 points.
A win by more than 150 points earns 5 additional points, meaning it would be worth 7. A win by 100 points would be worth 2 points plus 3 additional points, so 5. And 5-0. A win by 50 points would be worth 1 additional point, so 3 points in total, 2 for the win plus 1 additional for the 50 points. In case of a tie in points at the end of the table, the winning team is the one that made the most golden snitch catches.
If there is a tie in the number of golden snitch catches, then the team with the fastest catches wins.
Thus, the finalists are ranked according to the points they earned in the group stage, and the team with the most points faces the team with the fewest points. The second highest faces the second lowest, the third highest faces the third lowest, and so on to the last team.
In theory, the 2 best teams end up facing each other in the final. No Quidditch World Cup is free from controversy.
But some end up standing out because of very unusual events. The 1809 final, for example, which featured the event known as the Attack of the Murderous Forest, was contested between Romania and Mexico, which at the time was still called New Spain because it was part of the viceroyalty of the Spanish Empire. The host was Western Siberia, in northern Asia. This match went down in Wizarding history as the worst display of player temperament on the field.
Nico Nenad was a player for Romania, and he had already shown a great deal of mental instability in previous matches.
He had set his own feet on fire, had already banged his head against the wall, so simply, during the match, when Romania was losing, he would snap. He hit a bludger into the forest, which caused an instant reaction. The trees came to life and simply invaded the entire stadium, causing a great tragedy, where several people were killed, including the player himself. Later, it was discovered that, in reality, that was a spell cast by the player himself, and that he was in cahoots with dark wizards from the region. And that was a very tragic episode in the history of the Quidditch World Cups. And if you thought it was strange that the Quidditch World Cup happens every 4 years, the first one took place in 1473, but then, in Harry's 4th year, which is 1994, the Quidditch World Cup happens. You're right to find that strange.
It doesn't make sense for the first cup to be in an odd year and then switch to even years afterward.
The fact is that the World Cup used to take place in odd years until the year 1877. That's when the infamous tournament known as the Cup Nobody Remembers took place. Tickets were sold. The games were advertised, but simply no one remembers them happening. Not even those who had tickets. Not the players. Absolutely no one. For reasons nobody understood, the English beater Lucas Bergworth woke up without most of the teeth in his mouth. The Canadian seeker, Angelus Peel, woke up with his knees turned backwards. And half of the Argentinian team was found tied up in the basement of a pub in Cardiff. What happened, or rather, what didn't happen during the tournament, was never satisfactorily proven. The theories range from a mass spell cast by the Goblin Liberation Front, which at the time had many wizard anarchist supporters dissatisfied with many things, to an outbreak of cerebral spattergroit, which is a subspecies of common spattergroit that affects memory.
In any case, the International Quidditch Committee considered it appropriate to hold a new cup the following year, in 1878.
And that's why the competition started in odd years and is now held in even years, because of the infamous tournament that nobody remembers.
One of the World Cups that was also quite traumatic was the one in 1994, which took place in England.
The final was between Ireland and Bulgaria, and Ireland won the match. During the celebrations of Ireland's victory, there was an unprecedented outbreak of violence with supporters of Lord Voldemort attacking other wizards and capturing and torturing local muggles. For the first time in 14 years, the Dark Mark reappeared in the sky. Widespread alarm was caused, and many people in the crowd were injured. The International Quidditch Committee blamed the British Ministry of Magic for the lack of proper security, given the well-known existence of a violent tendency among purebloods in the United Kingdom.
Another World Cup that had a very remarkable event, even before the games began, was the one in 2014, which was held in Argentina, specifically in the Patagonian Desert. For the opening of the tournament, the Argentine Council of Magic, which is equivalent to the British Ministry of Magic, planned an event with the mascots of each country. The crowd in the stadium was buzzing with excitement as the mascots were performing, and everything was going smoothly. That was until the mascot from Norway, which was a serpent known as Selma, very fierce, ended up getting into a disagreement with the mascot from the Fiji team, which was Dukuwaga, a kind of shape-shifting shark that can take the form of a man. The magical creature handlers tried to intervene. They dove into the water to break it all up. But then the mascots from the Brazil team, which are Curupiras, known for protecting creatures, thought that the handlers were trying to hurt the creatures. And then they joined the fight, and it turned into total chaos. Panic spread throughout the stadium, blood everywhere, from both the magical animals and the handlers. The Sasabonsums, who were the mascots for Nigeria and are a kind of vampiric being, also joined the fight. And there were even rumors that the Haiti team had Inferi as its mascot. Inferi, which are nothing less than corpses reanimated by magic, a rumor that was confirmed, when the Inferi simply joined the fight, also devouring people who ended up tripping and falling near them. Anyway, it was total chaos. In the end, more than 300 people were injured, whether by shock, fractures, bites, and the first game hadn't even happened yet. Unfortunately, there isn't a complete guide with all the champions of the World Cups,
since the first one, but there is information about some of the champions. In 1473 was Transylvania. In 1966, the champion was Australia, whose standout was top scorer Royston Edelwine, who later ended up becoming the head of the International Quidditch Committee and had a very controversial term because he hated the crowd in the Quidditch stadiums and even banned the use of wands in the stadiums. The fans couldn't enter with their own wands.
In 1974, Syria won the Quidditch World Cup, and that final had major protests precisely because of the ban on bringing wands into the stadium.
The wizards disguised their wands as a kind of muggle vuvuzela, which made loud noises and released colored smoke. And then, at the end, they turned their wands back and caused a huge commotion, which made the head of the committee simply give up his position, and his ban on wands ended up being overturned. The cup in 1990 was won by Canada, the 5-day cup, and Scotland was devoured and suffered a bitter defeat. In 1994, the champion was Ireland over Bulgaria, which is the World Cup we follow in the book Goblet of Fire. And in 1998, the World Cup was supposedly cancelled because of Voldemort's puppet regime in the Ministry of Magic. This resulted in a series of threats to the Ministry of Magic. But after the Battle of Hogwarts, the Ministry, now led by Kingsley Shacklebolt, who was the Minister of Magic, managed to restructure itself, and the Quidditch World Cup took place.
And the champion team was Malawi, which played against Senegal. This was the second time that the Quidditch World Cup final was contested by two teams from the African continent. And here's a big inconsistency, because the cup takes place in different locations, right?
And the 1994 cup was hosted in England, so there's no reason for the 1998 one to be hosted in England again.
And since Voldemort's regime was only established there in Great Britain, it also doesn't make sense for the World Cup, on a global level, to have been cancelled, because many other events happened in the world, and the cup never stopped happening.
So this is an inconsistency in the history of the cup. There are several others that are smaller, but they exist. In 2002, Egypt beat Bulgaria in the final, when the seeker Hauya Zaglu caught the golden snitch, causing Crumb to leave the field in tears and decide to retire. In 2005, the champion team was Burkina Faso, which beat France.
The Burkinabe seeker, Joshua Fankara, became Minister of Magic in his country after the cup, but he resigned after 2 days because he preferred to play Quidditch.
The champion of the 2010 Cup was Moldova, which defeated China in a match that lasted 3 days, and is still considered one of the best Quidditch matches ever seen in history.
And the 2014 Quidditch World Cup is by far the cup we have the most information about.
Brazil and the wonderful campaign that Brazil had. I know that 2014 was a traumatic year for Muggles because of the FIFA World Cup.
The cup was even hosted in Brazil, and we were crushed by Germany with that 7-1 score that Brazilians will never forget. But in Quidditch, with the Brazilian national team, the story was different. Brazil had won the World Cup 5 times up to that point.
All the titles happened before 1990. The last final Brazil had played was in 1982 against Argentina.
The Brazilian coach was José Barbosa, who became known for revitalizing the national sport and calling up the youngest players up to that point for the national team. They were all around 22 years old. The chasers were Fernando Dias, Alessandra Alonso, and Gonçalo Flores. The beaters were Rafael Santos and Carlos Clodoaldo. The keeper was Raul Almeida, and the seeker was Antonio Silva, affectionately nicknamed Tony. The relative inexperience of this Brazilian team in terms of career length was not enough to shake their will to win, nor the great talent of that team.
Brazil opened the World Cup playing Haiti.
The 3 chasers made no less than 30 shots in the first hour of the game, scoring 10 goals, which means the Haitian goalkeeper was really good because she gave it her all to defend as well. On the other side, Haiti had scored 9 goals. So the score stood at 100 for Brazil and 90 for Haiti. At a certain point in the match, the Haitian beater, Blancourt, who had already missed before, ended up making another disastrous mistake. He hits a shot wrong that ends up hitting the Haitian seeker, who was almost catching the snitch. Then, the snitch ends up flying toward the beater and goes into the sleeves of his robe. He simply seems to forget the rule that only the seeker can catch the golden snitch, and takes the golden snitch out of his robes, raising it triumphantly. This caused Haiti to be disqualified, and Brazil secured its spot in the quarterfinals. In the quarterfinals, Brazil faced Wales. And this match already started off ominously because the coach of Wales, Guga Jones, who was a former beater for the Holyhead Harpies, wanted to curse Brazil's coach, José Barbosa, because, according to an article by Hitskitter, he had said that the chasers from Wales had no talent at all. Guga Jones was furious and had to be taken off the field because, she wanted to cast a spell on the guy.
And she was also prevented from entering the field wearing a protest shirt that said, "It should have been Haiti," since Haiti had been disqualified because of the incident with the golden snitch.
But Brazil didn't give Wales any rest in this game. The score was 310-300 when Tony Silva made an extraordinary dive and caught the golden snitch, giving Brazil the victory at 460-300 and securing a spot in the semifinals. The semifinal was marked by a very tense game, full of mistakes from both teams. Brazil played against the United States, but everything turned out fine because Brazil managed to catch the golden snitch and won by 420-310. And so Brazil secured its spot in the final of the 2014 World Cup, which was against Bulgaria. The game started off very balanced, and even though the Bulgarian defense was hard to get through, Brazil scored the first 10 points. Then Bulgaria tied the game, and after that, Brazil scored 3 more in a row, raising the score to 40 for Brazil against 10 for Bulgaria.
Bulgaria responded, scored more, making it 40-20, but then Brazil scored 2 more goals, bringing the score to 60-20.
And don't think it all happened very quickly, like I'm saying, okay? This match lasted 2 days. In Bulgaria, the big-name Victor Krum came out of retirement to fulfill his dream of winning a World Cup in his lifetime, and he was determined. Tony Silva, the Brazilian seeker, spotted the snitch first, and the two of them started a race to catch the golden ball. But neither of them managed to get it at that first moment, and the snitch disappeared from sight. And then, after some time in the match, the golden snitch reappeared, and Tony Silva dashed toward the little ball to make Brazil 6-time Quidditch champions. But Victor Krum was determined. It was his last World Cup. He had already come out of retirement, and he managed to outpace the Brazilian in speed and ended up catching the golden snitch and finishing the match. Bulgaria 170, Brazil 60. That's right. Even though Brazil was clearly superior throughout the whole match, Bulgaria's strategy of staying competitive until the golden snitch was caught worked, and Victor Krum was finally able to fulfill his dream of becoming a Quidditch world champion. We let them have it, right?
Hey, Potoko, let's give them this little bit of happiness, right, Potoko? Unfortunately, that's pretty much all the information we have about Quidditch World Cups.
Of course, there are a lot more details if you read the written texts. They're written by the author. This is just a broad summary. And also, read the book Quidditch Through the Ages.
There you'll find much more about the history of Quidditch itself, some of the World Cups, and a lot about the British and Irish League. The 2014 Quidditch World Cup happened online, right? On Pottermore, and it was really cool. It happened in real time, the text was coming out. Man, it was really amazing, dude. It was really amazing. I remember the fan sites translating it to post. Potterish, man, it was really cool. It was awesome. The channel Caldeirão Furado. Before, I used to follow things much more as a fan. I would make a post here and there, create content in Facebook groups, in a few little things, but I wasn't that active with posting. No, from 2014 onwards, at least 3 World Cups have already happened, and we have no idea who won or what happened in those cups. This is also a Quidditch World Cup year. If I remember right, in 2018, I teamed up with another Harry Potter page. The guy isn't part of that page anymore, by the way. We made a fake Quidditch World Cup. We created the matches. It was kind of like a fanfic, you could say. We created the matches, created the standout players. It was really cool indeed. Anyway, in my mind, Brazil won those 3 cups that happened and is going to win this year's Quidditch Cup now. It doesn't hurt to dream, right? That's it. Hope you enjoyed this World Cup themed episode as the event approaches. Brazil's squad list was just released. Did you like the call-up? Are you excited for the cup? Man, I like it. I don't follow soccer that much, but I get excited for the World Cup. I'm here collecting my sticker album. My World Cup album is almost complete, man. It's nearly complete. It's the Mexico national team. I got the Messi legend a few days ago. Where is it? Let me check. I think it's in the living room. Anyway, my friends, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave a like, comment, and share. All the content mentioned in this video is official, and you can find it in the original texts, on Pottermore about the subject, or in the book Quidditch Through the Ages. Thanks. See you in the next episode of Caldeirão Furado, and until then, mischief managed.